Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank goodness for Staci here because we're figuring everything out as we learn how to use technology and the Twitch. So welcome to the first stream of Let's Talk Pop, the miscellaneous weekly show where I hopefully will learn how to use this better than I currently do, and we talk about pop culture. Today, I'm figuring out how to look at my chat screen so you can talk to us about the movie of your dreams and my dreams, Wonder Woman 84, which came out on Christmas. The reason I have Staci on today is that we both basically were extremely disappointed by the film and went in with high hopes because I actually quite enjoyed the first one. So it was a huge bummer to go in and see just a whole lot of things that were not quite great about the Wonder Woman story, starting really right from the beginning. So I guess the first thing will be spoiler alert. There's going to be spoilers. We're talking about the movie that came out, so spoiler alert. I'm going to put that in the chat so no one can yell at me for talking about something that they already have seen, hopefully. And welcome.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here. So thank you everyone for coming to what is really one of our first streams. Oh gosh. I'm trying to fix this thing. Because
but this is our first stream, yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so
from the very beginning, here's the thing: is like they did this release or like on HBO Max rather than like in theaters because of the pandemic, which like super fair and exciting because like there hasn't been that much new movies,
and it didn't.
So, like how exciting!
And it didn't cost $20-$30 like all these other new releases have been.
So like there's all of that, and then like, but here's the thing: is like maybe they should have waited. Like they didn't have the rush that they needed to have, and like they have this opening scene in Themyscira that is just wires, right? Like you can just see the wires. Why?
You know, here's the thing. I don't think any of that would have been any different. Like, when was this movie supposed to come out?
I don't know.
It wasn't.
All I know is, like, but why, if the first one, the effects were actually quite good?
You know.
But the why, like, it was just like from the jump. And I went in going, I am going to like this movie. I am excited about this movie. I have agreed in my brain to enjoy this one way or the other. And it really, when I go in with that in my brain, it takes a lot for me to go, oh no, this was like legit garbage.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's also like hear from the chat. We have a few people viewing right now. I want to know.
Hello.
Did everybody see this movie? Do we need to give like, I know that if you're here, I'm just like going to operate under the assumption that you don't care about spoilers. But
I see you, Karen.
Okay. But like, do we need to give a little bit of a summary first? Do we need to talk about?
I think that hopefully if you're here, you've already seen it, but we'll probably give summaries as we go. So the fact that it was 1984 should have been really exciting. I had a lot of like Orwellian thoughts. I had a lot of like cheesy 80s like Zemeckis thoughts. And like the first 20 or so minutes of like the 80s portion, I was like, okay, like this feels a little Zemeckis-y. This feels like a little like Back to the Future. Like we're getting the vibe. Like it's going to be fun and a little silly and ridiculous. And then instead of that happening, they didn't lean into the Orwell thing. So why was it 1984 at all?
Well, I mean,
could it have been 1985? Could have
been
like
it could have been. It could have been anything in the 80s.
Because some of the art that they showed didn't even come out until later in the 80s. Like they didn't even do like a remote amount of homework. So like you might have, how hard would it have been them to have been like, it was 1988?
Well, and that's the thing, like the first thing that got me excited about this movie was the marketing, right? Like the font and the colors on the posters. Like I was like, yes, this is going to be good. Like maybe it won't be as good as MCU movies, but it's going to be entertaining, and we're gonna get some like fucking girl
Yeah, like
power.
fun.
Maybe that's a little bullshit, but like it's gonna be 80s stylized, and we're gonna like it.
Yeah, and instead we got like, I will say my favorite part of the movie, one of like two things that were good, was having a man do a montage of like clothing ideas. Like fuck yes, Chris Pine is just a charisma sandwich that I would like to bite into. That is me being a horn dog. Hopefully my mom isn't one of the people watching.
I mean, she probably is.
I mean, honestly, but like Chris Pine is just, and like he's getting gray, and like that's hot. Like he is the hottest he's ever been in this movie because he's acting against Gal Gadot, who has literally like no personality. Like it's so easy to be a charisma sandwich when like the person you're acting next to is a cardboard box who is hot. And like that's why she's Wonder Woman. Like Wonder Woman has the same disease that like Captain America would have, except for Chris Evans is also a charisma sandwich. Or like even Man of Steel, where they managed to take Henry Cavill, who is like pure charisma, and make him boring. Cool. Thanks, Mom. My mother has warned me my aunt is watching. I'm still going to talk about taking a bite out of Chris Pine. It's fine.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I'm consistently disappointed with the DC movies, because I think there's something about what I've come to expect as a fan of the MCU, like Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they decided to make good movies. And like they decided, oh, our audiences actually respond better to thoughtful action movies the same way that comic book audiences respond better to thoughtful comics, right? Like, it's not like the MCU plots are coming from a vacuum. They're all coming from existing comics. And that exists in DC Comics too. I know Marvel better, but like, there are really thoughtful, politically aware plots to pull from
yes,
canonically DC things. And instead we get, I'm Wonder Woman, I'm a lady, and my broken heart needs to be taught how to fly by the memory of a man that died 60 years ago.
And I very much agree, Karen, that he is, like, Chris Pine is charismatic, but, like, Steve as a character is not that special. And he's not. I mean, he's just like, I'm a pilot, and I do things. And, like, he is taking a character that has very little behind him and making it work as best as he can.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't really mind in the sense of, like, we're trying to, like, without subtly subvert the genre, right? So, like, we have the slightly useless but very pretty and charismatic male love interest who is used as a tool and otherwise is just kind of like a plot device for our hero, right?
Yeah,
like,
and that would have been perfect.
Like, I don't think that that's good writing, but I do think that there's something to be said for that being, like, so frequently, like, the only female representation in superhero movies is the, like, girlfriend who can shoot a gun well or something.
Was it? It's called getting fridged often, where it's
well,
like,
when you die, yeah,
when they die, and it like becomes the thing where like the girl, like the fact that the girl died, like puts them on a hero's journey.
Look up women in fridges if you want to learn.
If you don't know, the fridging thing is just very much fun. Yeah, it's upsetting. And so, like, I love the idea of them doing a montage with him, because that is also, like, a very cool, like, subversive, like, putting something that is most usually for women. Like,
right, that's the thing. No one's staying celibate for 60 years for Steve. Like, why the hell would Diana stay celibate for 60 years for Steve? Also, she's supposed to be bi. Like, she's supposed to be queer. Like what the fuck?
Also, like, where is the woman power of Wonder Woman being like, oh, you were so important to me, I couldn't move on and live my life as Wonder Woman. And, like, also, so then he teaches her here's the whole thing. I'm going to jump ahead because I don't care. Why not? Here's the whole thing that really got my goose, so to say, is that he basically taught her how to fly because he was like,
hated that so much.
You know what she needed? Being literally a daughter of Themyscira, a man to teach her how to fly. Like, she is wonder fucking woman, and this dude is like, you think about the currents, like, also very hippy dippy shit about how to fly. And then she's like, we're gonna take this plane, we're gonna steal it from the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian's like, you know what we're gonna do with our planes? We're gonna leave them fully fueled, just sitting there.
Also,
and Steve's gonna be like, oh, this plane that I used to fly planes from 1918, because the first one takes place for World War I, mind you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, first off, how could he drive? How could he fly a plane? How could he drive? None of that shit's the same anymore.
Not even, and it would be one thing if it was the 40s to now, but we're talking about 1800s with like literal propeller planes. Like, he used to have to jump it like this to get a plane to start. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm magic.
Also, cars in like the 1910s, like he dies in World War I. So he has never driven he's never driven anything like more complicated than a Model T, right? And that is basically like, I mean, it's like a clunky stick shift.
But suspend your disbelief. He tried on clothes.
Or alternatively, why couldn't she just fucking do it?
She's Wonder Woman. Also, if you've been alive for like 80 years, don't you think that she would have learned how to like do all this stuff? Like, what else is she doing with her time? She's an archaeologist.
She's been alive for way longer than 80 years. She's been alive for millennia.
Yeah, but like in the world as such, that like not Themyscira, she's been alive for like 60, 80 years, and like, or whatever, 60, 70 years.
I mean, even...
Wouldn't she get bored and take a fucking class? Like,
also, I guess...
the first thing I would do would be like, I'm going to take flying lessons.
Also, on its surface, like, why did it take this, like, random dude to, like, pluck Amazons into modernity? Like,
I don't know if I mind the random dudeness of it all, although that's a new statement I like to say, the random dudeness of it all. Except for the random dudeness in which she wishes, she makes a wish, and then he takes, like, it's not like he comes back out of the past with little to no, like, fanfare. He takes over someone else's body.
Yeah.
And, like, that's real fucked up. Because, like, what about that guy? The only things that this movie tells us about that guy is that he was messy and he had bad clothes. And here's the thing. Apparently, according to the Wonder Woman world, if you are messy and have bad clothes, well, fuck you then. You don't deserve your own life. Let's put Steve in there, and then never, like, aside from the fact that she has to give him back to be Wonder Woman, she would have been just fine never giving that back guy a life. What about his family?
And
like,
also...
we don't know that he doesn't have a family. All we know, literally all we know.
And also, like,
he's a bad dresser.
Just on a very surface level, like, he looks like this other guy to her. Like, he looks like this other guy to everybody except for us, the movie audience. Isn't that fucking disturbing? Like, to be interacting with someone who physically is different than the person you love, but is, like, talking and acting like this person you love that you haven't seen for 60 fucking years. Sorry.
It also just makes me sad because, like, this guy, like, he obviously missed, like, a week of work. Like, there's all these consequences to this guy's life for disappearing for a week. Although, to be fair, everyone made wishes, and, like, the world was in chaos, and then the minute they took their wishes back, it was all just, like, little to no consequence anyway. Which was so weird. There was, like, lions and tigers and, like, nuclear missiles and places blew up and people died, and then they, like, undid it, and everyone was like, it's not like they went back in time. It's not like there was a flashpoint moment, like, where the Flash goes back in time and everyone forgets but him. Everyone remembers what just happened. But there's no consequence to that. She just, like, walks out into the world and everyone's nice now. Like, that really, like, my favorite genre is fish out of water time travel. Like, very specifically, fish out of water. Like, I love Sleepy Hollow season 1, where Ichabod wakes up and he's like now and like has to deal with like cell phone. Like, love that shit. Terminator, like, give me fish out of water time travel any day and I will watch it and be excited. My favorite thing is seeing someone from the past come to the future, which is now, and be like, oh, everything's crazy and magic. Like, why do I love it? No fucking idea. But I specifically love it. This movie was made for me. How did they fuck this up so bad?
Yeah.
Like, they literally were like, oh, this girl likes fish out of water time travel. I bet she'll enjoy it. No. They literally are like, oh, they do a good job of it for like 2 minutes where he's like, I like these funny parachute pants and cell phones are crazy. Love that.
Right.
Love that journey.
It's like the first act of the movie, like, I can forgive mediocre graphics, I guess, though they had too much money to not be good, but like, let's just, like, putting that aside, like, if the plot has substance of any kind, and...
Or like a thesis statement would have been good.
I know. I watched with my mom and brother, and I turned to my brother, like, 2/3 of the way through, and was like, what's the plot of this movie?
No idea. I could not. I rewatched it knowing we were going to talk about it. It was difficult. The fact that I had to watch this movie twice.
Sorry, I did not rewatch it. I didn't want to.
You're fine. I would not have recommended the second time because the first time I could enjoy it because I was forcing myself. Well, I could enjoy some of it because like I wanted to like it so bad. I liked the first. Like, there was a lot of like the girl power for a man issues in the first one, but I still enjoyed it. I was excited to have a DC movie that had like heart in it. But like my whole thing when it comes to like the reason why the MCU works, and like, listen, we make fun all the time for like we make fun all the time of like this idea of Spider-Man having the like, with great power comes great responsibility, and everyone's like, oh, say it again. You know what? Yes, say it again. Have a thought in your head and follow it. Right. It's not like I need you to have a huge thesis that you're gonna like change all the time. Just like have a thought and follow it.
So like, and like going back to that for a second, like we're talking about there's 5 million Spider-Man franchises and 5 million Batmans, right? And we talk about like I mean, I haven't even seen the full Andrew Garfield ones.
Oh, I have.
Which I should, but also I mean, I like the reimagination. Into the Spider-Verse is like far and away.
Into the Spider-Verse.
It's just, here's the thing, actually.
We're so passionate we can't even stick to it.
Sorry. Let's go back to DC for a second. So I know that you saw Birds of Prey.
Oh, like obviously. 15 times.
And
so many times.
Like, just, like, hands up in chat, who saw Birds of Prey? I would not say that Birds of Prey was a perfect movie. Like,
no.
It had messy points. It had weird plot things. It had, like,
but it was
fan
so
service.
Fun.
It was so fun. That's all I'm asking. This big budget comic book movie can be fucking fun. And
also, there was like no action.
No. Wonder Woman 84 had barely any action, and
it took like an hour and a half for a real fight scene.
There wasn't any soul. Like, there wasn't anything, there wasn't any joy in it. Like, I go back and rewatch even the Marvel movies that I'm like, whatever. And at least there's heart there, right? Like,
yeah. It felt like they didn't know what they wanted to say. They didn't know how they wanted to say it. I mean, they made a lot of missteps too. Like,
is that your mom saying hi?
Yes, it is. We said hands raised who's seen the movie, and my mother has seen the movie.
That's right. Okay.
They've already heard me bitch about all of this, so you get to hear it all a second time. But like, if we're gonna get messy and talk about some of the really messy parts of this movie, like and the chat's absolutely correct that this movie had way too big of a budget to have such a messy excuse for a storyline. Like, it is bananas. But like, there's also this thought of like, there is some political drama happening with Gal Gadot being Israeli and a member, like a very proud member of the IDF. And I think in the first one, you could maybe just say, oh, you know, but like it's Wonder Woman and it's World War One, and like we don't have to talk about that. But like, if you choose not to, but like in this one, they have a whole Middle East section of the movie. Like, why do you need to do that? In the 80s, we weren't really talking about, like, sure, we were talking about like the Middle East a little because that's part of the Cold War, but like, it's about 1984. You could have easily talked about almost any other country, or just like not written like a country part into it, and not had like her saving little like Middle Eastern children from like a bomb basically coming at them. Like, why? Like, it gives you the eely mealies because
it's real icky, and it would have required like 5 seconds of thought to not include.
Like 5 seconds to be like, you know what we don't need to have is Gal Gadot, a card-carrying member of the IDF, like saving little Middle Eastern children when like she specifically fought in the Lebanese War, which is like a really rough and complicated piece of history. Which like we don't need to get into a lot of the Israeli history here, but like the Lebanese War ended with like a lot of like mines. There's like a lot of landmines in parts of Lebanon that are still affecting the area today that like kill children on a regular basis or maim them, and like literally them playing like soccer on the street, and like it's a very specific visual that they very much could have avoided.
Yeah,
so, like, apologies for like this weird political rant, and I know I warned the chat ahead of time, but like what the fuck? Like it's just like legitimately gross.
It's just so unnecessary and so thoughtless that like
it's like they thought of it. They were like, you know what? Let's comment on our thoughts on the Israeli crisis in the Middle East.
Like that's the thing. Like you can like I'm not right. You're not necessarily like thinking constantly about her politics until it happens. Like that's the thing.
And then the minute that it started happening, like a minute where she's like, "We're in the Middle East and there's kids playing with soccer balls," I was like,
yeah, because like,
why?
Because like Wonder Woman's not the only movie I've mentioned where I have problems with the lead, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that was like,
it was really gross. It's also like in the first Wonder Woman movie, and in the original one that takes place, they have like a Middle Eastern character who is like a hero and was done really well. Like they did really good justice. Mm-hmm. They showed a part of like the World War I fighters that they often don't do about like a man who was like a Middle Eastern man who was on the front lines, which is a real thing that happened that we often don't talk about in West Coast cinema and like Western civilization cinema. And they basically took all that goodwill that they were able to garner by doing that in the first movie and just take a pooper on it, which is a real bummer. And like, why? How could they put so much thought into that in the first one?
I mean, also, we're talking about, I mean, not that this movie's gonna, I'm sorry, but like, how can you go from a World War I movie and talk about the fall of the Ottoman Empire and British colonialism and then go straight to Egypt in the 80s and not have any nuance?
It's just all the nuance was like, and like it's so confusing to me that nuance just.
And here's the thing: I don't expect this movie to have nuance because I know better. So just don't do it.
So just avoid it.
Yeah, like.
Just don't do it. It just felt so out of place and bizarre. But, you know, I guess, I mean, they also do a lot of the stuff, which is my pet peeve. Like, we can get off of the Middle East subject. I felt like I'd be remiss in having a conversation about this film being garbage.
Actually,
without pointing that out.
Can we spend a few minutes talking about how wasted Kristen Wiig was in this movie?
Oh, yes, that is 100% one of the points I have written down. From
okay, good.
Kristen Wiig is hot. Like, so hot. And so good. And I don't believe for a second she's even supposed to be ugly in this movie, because even when she's like, oh, mess, she's still fucking hot.
So we're talking about 80s. So let's go to like the most immediate comparison, blockbuster, woman-centric superhero movie was Captain Marvel, right? And one of the great things about Captain Marvel is that it had the trappings of, like, it was Top Gun. It was a 90s action movie in some ways, right? So Wonder Woman 1984, I was kind of expecting to have 80s action movie trappings and 80s movie trappings, right? Like, play with the genre. So why not so I like saw, like, you have this golden opportunity to fuck around with and refute the ugly duckling gets a makeover and gets hot thing that was such a big thing in 80s teen movies, right? Like, Kristen Wiig is the weirdo. You can go, like, end of Breakfast Club. Oh, suddenly you take off her glasses and, you know, put her in a prettier dress.
On Breakfast Club.
But
they take that, they did her so dirty.
Oh my God.
Like, you're so cute and cool and hip and dark. And then they're like, oh, here's some pink. You're cute now. And like, she was cute before.
I know. But why can't, how hard is it to say, hey, this is a major feature of the genre, and we're going to acknowledge that and do it differently. Like, isn't it funnier that instead of nobody noticing her before, she doesn't realize that people are noticing her. It's that she gets confidence when she sees physical manifestation of her powers, rather than she is also suddenly attractive. Like, it's not that she was competent and beautiful and all of these things before, and the only thing that changed is because she could throw things further, she knew it then. Yeah, that's the thing. So we've got this conversation in the chat, like, why is it a competition? And I don't fucking know, because
Diana doesn't see the competition at all. Like, it's not like two women are competing. Diana's like, I'll be nice to you. Like, eventually was like, I'll just be nice to you. Like, I don't see any reason.
Right, and like, I can see why, like, she wants to be heard. It's like an incredibly sexist environment. She's brilliant. Like, having a confident, gorgeous friend, she's like, oh, I want to be seen the way that you are. But like, both of them want to be seen not because they're beautiful, but because they're smart and experts in their fields. And like, there's no exploration of that at all. Like,
and then she's just, and I mean, I think it was you who said that, like, it's Kristen Wiig very much played this role as if she were in love with Diana, which I thought made everything better.
Yeah. And also,
like, this idea of like her having a crush on Diana, which I always say is like the like fundamental queer question that people ask, is the like, do I want to be you or do I want to be with you question.
Yeah.
And it's like this idea that like wanting to be someone is such like a cool idea, and like a complicated question that we ask ourselves.
Also,
like, do I want to, and like if she had played it, like, and I think that Kristen Wiig, to her credit, played it that way, and I read it that way, but like the writers didn't think about it with that much nuance.
Right.
So and there's this idea there.
Just thinking about it for a second, like, for you to be at Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, right? This is what and to be a big enough deal curator there that you have your own office.
Yeah. You have to be, that the FBI is asking you to, like, look up.
Right, like, that means security clearances, that means you're published, that means you have a doctorate, that means you have, like, all of these credentials.
Coffee is coming from this is such an academic standpoint that
but, like,
I haven't even thought of.
But, like, seriously, to be a big enough deal to have your own office, like, a big office in the Smithsonian, like...
Yeah, you have to be so accomplished. Why is she competing with Diana at all? And like, listen, I get it. Gal Gadot's hot. But like...
And like, I get that, like, you can have, like, the conflict of her crush doesn't see her as a sexual being until she gets more confident. And I, like, don't like that. But I can accept it.
And the confidence would have been fine.
But it's not just that he doesn't accept her as a sexual being. It's that he doesn't see her as valid at all. And, like... either this is an incredibly sexist workplace that doesn't see any women's contributions as valid no matter how hot they are,
Which maybe.
or
Sorry, it's Radford's chat. I heard that's what it was like for no Chomsky too. We're all too smart for this platform. I love that we're taking over for us. Screw you, Twitch. We're smart.
I'm just this movie fundamentally bothered me in a way that I didn't expect it to. How's that? I thought it was going to be fun. I really thought it was going to be fun.
Kristen Wiig, here's another complaint that I have, is that we saw the movie Cats come out last year, correct?
Yes.
So the movie Cats came out last year to be a giant joke, which I quite enjoyed, but it feels like they didn't learn much from the movie Cats in how they portrayed her as Weird Cat Lady, when she was like, I take back my original thing where I'm just like Diana and I want to be my own special weird thing, like a tiger thing. And then she has a certain amount of powers, but they never make clear. Again, one of my big problems with the DC universe.
Well, she never gives up her powers.
See, but that's how do you make a second wish? They don't make that clear, because I thought you could only make one wish. So she made a second wish on top of her one
or
wish?
alternatively,
She had to have given up her wish to give up second wish. Right?
No, I think that she just kept getting more and more powerful.
No, she literally had to ask him. So she asked him for more. So she had to renounce her initial wish and then ask for a different thing.
But she didn't give up the different thing, right?
Well, so I think the thing she asked for was more power, more weird shit. She wouldn't have asked to be powerful in the first place, but she asked to be like Diana without realizing that Diana had special powers.
Right.
So then all of a sudden, he gave her can he give her power out of kindness though, Shots? Because I thought that's not how this worked. You don't just get to give second gifts. You don't just get to be here's another one, no one else.
I mean, but maybe
that doesn't surprise me for this movie, because it also had that thing where she got to make up the fact that she could turn things invisible with little to no explanation ahead of time. All of a sudden she could just do that.
But here's Wonder Woman's invisible jet is a thing. That is part of Wonder Woman lore.
But that's the thing. He was using one of his takesies for her. Got it. Thank you, Shots. I appreciate you. But also, what the fuck? So he was like, sure, you want a thing? I will give you a thing. I will make you look like the movie Cats.
I will make you look like...
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about buttholes right now, I have to say.
Also, why couldn't... If they're gonna go that direction with her, they should have committed better. Make her a better villain.
Her villain was literally she wanted to she was angry, but here's
her villainry was she killed
was a weird.
She killed a creepy dude.
Listen, I would do a lot of shit for Pedro Pascal as well. But not bad, sad dad bad. Pedro Pascal.
I know!
Sad, mad dad. Sad,
Isn't
mad,
it?
Dad, dad.
Actually, it's kind of a wonder that Pedro Pascal's charisma could not save this.
No, but he wasn't good, and they made him ugly, and I don't even know how they did that, because he is in a Mandalorian suit in the Mandalorian, and he's hot. He steps into a screen with the Mandalorian suit, and you're I would do anything for this man who is walking in a suit. Yeah, it's the wig. You're right. That wig was bad.
Also, I will say the little baby Yoda attached to his hip.
It's true. It does make him, but he's hot in everything.
I know.
He's hot in Game of Thrones. The thing about it though is
he's so hot in Game of Thrones.
Bisexual god. But the thing about his sad, bad, mad dad thing, where he's got a child that doesn't look anything like him with little to no explanation. The child is a terrible child actor, which I feel terrible about saying, because that's not their fault. Kid actors have a rough go, but why did they hire a kid who didn't look anything like him, who also wasn't that good, when there's plenty of amazing, fine, whatever. I don't even want to talk about kids in terms of talent or not, because they're too young. But it just felt like a real weird choice for him to be I really love my kid, but I'm also going to leave my kid 100% alone in this room. while I
Yeah.
take over the world, and then all of a sudden be like, meh.
Ugh. Diversity.
Like, that you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No,
but like,
you're not wrong.
But there's a better way to handle that. But just like, here's
Also,
a child who doesn't look anything like you.
Also, like, honestly, like, if you're gonna be a rich, kind of negligent dad, instead of having your assistant, who's the only person that didn't get fired or leave, like, why the fuck is the assistant staying for the sinking ship, be his babysitter? Like, you're probably gonna have a nanny. Also, why does your ex
actually rich?
Why does your ex actually trust you with him? That's the other thing. Like,
why is she leaving him alone with the kid at all? Because he's obviously a negligent like person who is lying to everyone because he's not actually rich enough to have a nanny until later. He's like a poor guy lying to everyone.
Right.
Like, just don't give him your like. And then he's like, oh, that you reminded me that I have a kid. I have to like go out and is that what he gave up? But he didn't. I'm so confused. Like I was so confused by the dad angle, but it doesn't hurt that like we never see the ex. We hear them talk about the ex, but we never see the ex. And on top of that, there's this whole angle in which the movie kind of had like a bit of a Wall Street vibe, like a very Gordon Gekko feel, and like they're railing a little bit against capitalism as one of the many plot points that they don't actually fully fulfill. But like a movie from a like this is a franchise film about Wonder Woman in charge of like a whole like that costs millions and millions of dollars to make. I'm not really sure what legs you have to stand on to even reference anti-capitalism at this point.
Yeah.
Y'all just want more and more. Oh, do you want more and more? Because you released on HBO Max as a way to get more subscribers on your viewing platform, and you cost $500 million to make. But you tell me about how we as regular people just want too much. What? Like, sure, great, cool beans. Thank you for that, Capitalism 101. Like, I literally was, like, waiting for, like, Gordon Gekko to pop out and be like, hey, I'm gross. So, like, Shia LaBeouf, because he was in the more recent one, to, like, come out and just be like, lesson learned. Like, this is, and I went to Arts High School Fair, and, like, Fairpoint. I went to public Arts High School, and they taught us how the stock market worked by making us watch Wall Street, followed by Trading Places. I'm not kidding you. It's why I know nothing about money now. No, this is my entire economic season. We watched Roger and Me, the documentary about, like, that Michael Moore did about the Detroit auto plants. Trading Places, you know, the Eddie Murphy movie, where I'm like, oh, my teacher literally at the end of us watching Trading Places was like, you understand stocks now, right? Sure. I mean, all I know is about pork, because the whole movie is about, like, pork trading or some shit. And then, like, it just is so weird. And I love that. We shouldn't have all of our wishes are bad just because we want to kill
Wait, also, like...
tip shop lady. Like, yeah. When I have a wish, it's like that I have more money, maybe, or that, like, my family is safe, or that, like, my friends are doing well, or maybe I'm like,
also, like...
one was like, I'm famous, but, like...
Why would everybody's first instinct wish be so huge?
And
like,
also so, like, I was gonna say immediate.
Yeah.
I wish I had more cows. What? Like, says some random dude in the middle of Washington, D.C. Some dude was like, I just want a bunch of cows. I didn't mean here. It was, like, very, like, Genie in a lamp, like, careful what you wish for.
And like, the amount that they had to be like, monkey's paw. Gotta give something up to get what you want. Like...
It really coming... I think that the lesson they're trying to teach, coming from the people trying to teach it to us, is part of what makes it so, like, frustrating. Because, again, it's like these rich schmucks with, like, tons of money who are corporations, franchise films. And, yeah, the right in the middle of a pandemic, a good message is that we can't be trusted with wishes. Good call.
Yeah.
It's like, wouldn't we wish for health and happiness? Like, I feel like my first wish, if I was going to think big, and they were like, think of any wish that you could ever want, I would say contentment.
What would you wish for immediately? What do you want right now? I want like vaccine distribution.
Like, and I get it. Like, they made this before the pandemic or whatever, and like, I have a lot of things about like what my thoughts are for like what I want my like public television viewing to be with the pandemic. Like, do we ignore it? Do we like? I was watching MacGyver. I shit you not. And this season, they're like, "Oh, remember that pandemic?" And then they just move on. Well, and you know what? Yes, that is what I want you to do. So I want you to be like, "Oh, that happened. Goodbye."
I mean, but ask me what I want. Like, given no pandemic, okay, like, make sure everybody has access to food and clean drinking water. Like, why are we...
Why would Wonder Woman even want to save humanity? It's bullshit. Education for people, like, equal rights.
Like, and I get that not everybody, like, some people are going to be like, I want to be famous. I want a dog. I want $1 million. Like, but also some people's first wish is going to be, like, if it's going to be a grand scale thing, it's going to be, like, more altruistic. And, like, that's not, I don't know. Oh, no.
And yeah, like, I get why her wish is that, like, oh, are we back?
We're back.
Okay. I was going to say, like, my biggest thing is, like, yeah, it makes sense that the thing she wished for was that, like, the person she loved the most to come back. But also, like, didn't her, like, mentor die? Like,
right.
Isn't she not allowed to go back to her home? Like, again, it goes back to this idea that, like, a man is everything that she lived for all of this time. She was like, I want this man, again, who wasn't Steve, good call, whose life they just took over with little to no rhyme or reason, and they were just like, you're fine, like, fuck this guy, he's messy. Again, my biggest pet peeve. I just, as a messy person, I took a lot of offense to the fact that the way they decided that that guy's life was not worth, living is that he was messy. And, like, it's a long time to, like, not... I know earlier on we were talking about this and how, like, what was she celibate for 6 years? Also, how much do you think they boned, like, right away? Like, I feel like there had to have been boning, right? And then, like, she sees that guy again at the end, and I'm like, ooh, is he like, oh, I bet I fucked you at some point. Like, what is his thought seeing her? You think they only fucked once? Maybe it was only once, but I feel like they were, like, there was a time crunch, I guess.
I just, like...
Ooh, what would Rasher with the thoughts here. What's the monkey's paw for a pandemic not happening? Would it be Trump losing the election or a nuclear war? Well, apparently a nuclear war happens immediately because some Middle Eastern guy was like, I want more power, which is exactly what we assume they're going to do in a movie with Gal Gadot as the lead. Like, some dude, like, it was just such a lack of nuance.
And then everybody's like, gonna push the button.
Oh,
and then a missile is gonna launch from the center of DC.
Well, you know, that's where they keep the missiles, the center of Washington, DC. Considering, like, my friend's dad used to be the guy who had his finger on the button, and the missiles are most certainly kept in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, Thrasher missed, I think that you joined after we went on a 20-minute rant about the Middle East being horrible. How they handled the Middle East in this movie, and how uncomfortable it was in general. So that was a rant. Oh, and then, yeah, so my issue was her, like, deciding that she knew how to make things invisible. I obviously love the invisible jet, but isn't it, like, the invisible jet,
Papa Hammy way.
Papa Hammy way is my dad.
I figured. Should have been done more like an 80s movie and show how society really was, not the 2020 version of the 80s. Yeah.
Or done it like Zemeckis, like Back to the Future, and really had fun with it. And I don't know, maybe, like, I have a few songs from the 80s play? Well, she doesn't know she can fly yet when she gets the jet. And, like, she can fly in the comics. That is a thing later. I had to look it up because I don't remember her being able to fly.
But I'm also okay with her. But I'm also okay with her flying the invisible plane. Like, that is also a thing in the comics. It's just...
Yeah.
It's just,
how did she all of a sudden know to make things invisible?
but like,
It's like, and that's not a thing in the comics. She didn't make the plane invisible. Yeah, so this is all F that jet. F that jet that Steve knew how to fly all the way. Like, she doesn't know how to fly the plane. Remember? She made Steve fly the plane, even though he is from 1918 and has no idea how jet propulsion works. And then there's a fully fueled jet on the, like, I'm still mad about it. I'm so bad about it. And then he's like, oh, think about currents. And then she's like, I can fly now. And also, isn't the point, like, does the invisible jet mean that radar doesn't work?
well, apparently. Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is fully visible in the invisible jet in the comics. It is always her going like,
yeah,
like,
so, like
I'm flying.
They're trying to elude radar. So, like, her making the jet invisible shouldn't have done anything.
Also, like, I'm sorry, but can't they just like get their asses on a commercial flight? Wouldn't that have made?
It's not that hard. She's got so much money. And if she doesn't, that's her own fucking fault. Because if you know that you're going to live that long, you take out stocks and shit.
Also, like, can't she have gone on official business? So,
none of this movie makes sense because they did not come up with a proper. Oh, that's good to know that's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like, who's who? Who's who in this chat? But like,
I assume we know everybody in some way right now.
At least for now, I think like over time it'll be like a little bit. Oh yeah, riding the wind. So it's all about this like.
Leon was the angriest at Chris Pine saying some BS about riding the wind being the thing that makes Wonder Woman able to fly after all these goddamn years.
She needed a man to be like, well, all you got to do is think about the currents, and then she's like, oh, I can fly.
Radar is on Wikipedia.
Yeah, radar is on Wikipedia. Look that shit up. All she had to do, like, literally they're hiding from, so, like, obviously the invisible, she was like, I made a coffee cup invisible once. I don't know how or why that happened, but I guess I could do a whole plane or we'll die.
Also,
the result of that not working is death.
Right, and it's just such a sloppy plan. Like, why? You're like, okay, I have to get to Cairo in the next 12 hours or 24 hours, like whatever it is. Why is your first instinct, oh, it makes sense to steal a plane? Like,
again, in the fully fueled
right.
plane.
Also, like, that's a really long distance. Getting a plane that is...
She saw her dad, a man, do it. You're right. She just needed a man to show her. All she needs to do is have
there were no consequences for stealing the plane. The plane itself had no internal tracking. Like, I'm sorry, that technology existed. And also,
but you know what? They were so busy dealing with the fact that everybody made insane wishes.
But also, not only did they have enough fuel to get there, but they specifically picked a plane that held enough fuel to get there. Like, that's not every plane. Not every plane can go that far.
Also, he only used like little propeller planes in the 1980s. How would he have known which plane worked? So why do we think that this is made this way with all these people who? So I do think that there is a problem. Yeah, it's a museum plane. It doesn't make any sense why it would be fueled. It doesn't make any sense that it's there. I think there's a problem with like things being made by committee. I also think that a lot of men, even if there's a woman director, are part of these writing processes, and they get so busy and bogged down with this idea that it has to be successful and make money that often they forget, and this is women too, but like this is everyone. There's this idea that they have to make money, so it has to be successful, that they make the movie by committee, which means so many things are lost, even between maybe the original script was so much better. And then, you know, you also have to remember that all of these movies are funded by certain places, like China funds a ton of movies, and the Chinese box office is a huge source of income for films. So then you go, okay, like so they can't use China as the bad guy. Yeah, rewriters with only one woman, yeah. But like, you can't use China as a baddie, so it has to be somewhere else, because otherwise it won't do well in the Chinese box offices, which was another issue that I've had in things. Don't get me started on the Mulan movie, which took all of the joy of Mulan and made it bad. She's got powers now. And I think that there's a lot of issues when you make a movie by committee and you make a movie to try to appease stakeholders because it takes the soul out of a movie. And listen, the Avengers and MCU do that as well. Don't get me wrong, but they at least go into it like with a 11 movie plan, where DC didn't. Because here's another fun thing that we have to. Yeah, the suits probably screwed it up with their notes, and people listened. I would not be surprised. That is so commonly what happens. Even the films that I've worked on, like the scripts were good until they got made and the editors were in and the producers were in and all the people whose money was tied up were in. Again, a movie about anti-capitalism, fucked over by money.
But how did we end up in this situation where like Marvel, despite being owned by Disney, is consistently putting out much better movies to like more financial acclaim? Like, let's be clear. Like, even like, all of their stuff has been fairly successful.
I have a question. Are we ignoring the first Superman movie?
Man of Steel?
Man of Steel. Because in Man of Steel, he has to hide the fact that he has superpowers because that doesn't exist in the world that they live in.
I mean, I'm kind of okay to ignore it just because it was...
Does that just mean that she spent 80 years not helping people
well,
and
that's,
showing her power?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I mean, so they don't... She doesn't technically know they interact with them until Batman versus Superman, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen for another 20 years past this movie?
That's what I mean. And so that's
25 years
that she has hid her powers, even though she was very much wearing a gold suit, begging people, talking to them through that guy, telling them to put their wishes back.
And also, we still have that, like, suspension of disbelief thing that's in DC where maskless superheroes aren't recognizable.
Like, again, to, like, not to harp on the fact that, like, Flashpoint isn't an effect and I'm going to be a giant fucking nerd. But, like, Flashpoint didn't exist. So, again, the Flash is not running back in time and resetting clocks. So, until they set up a Flashpoint alternate universe, we're basically finding out that Wonder Woman doesn't save people for 80 years, even though in 1980 we see her in a mall saving people in a Wonder Woman costume.
And no one's talking, and like either, and it's like so acceptable. Like no one's saying there like, who's this weird ass vigilante in a costume?
It's so confusing. And you know what really?
With a magical lasso.
A magical lasso. And at one point, a full-on gold costume, which looked badass as fuck. That looked good. And I love the little, like, the homage at the end with Linda Carter.
Yeah.
The original, like...
Well, I think that's what's... The States this whole time. I mean, we do have to remember that this is the studio that released Justice League and then also let their fans go all kinds of toxic over... this Zack Snyder.
The thing I also have to say about DC, and I know there was a comment earlier on about how, like, the thing about it is that Marvel's been playing the long game since day one, which it has. They announced, like, 3 years in advance exactly what they're going to do and how the movie is going to end. They announced more than that. 6 years in advance.
No, they announced
15 years in advance.
That was a decade of payoff, right? Like, from the time that the original Avengers movie aired, which was 2012. Like, I remember going there the day after I finished my undergrad thesis. I went to see this movie with the girl I was dating. And then, like, after that, like, we have payoff in 2019 from that movie. Like, we are expecting this long game. And I'm not going to say
even the Avengers movie had a bunch of movies that tied into it ahead of time.
Right. Well, I mean, like, the long game with that is, like, we have a plot point that comes up in... Thor. Like, this plot point first comes up in Thor and then comes up again in Captain America. It's the Tesseract.
It's a whole thing.
And it, like, Infinity Stones are consistently, like, teased out and, like, everything ties in. And not all of these movies are not all of the movies are good. Like, I cannot bring myself to rewatch Thor: The Dark World. I cannot...
I just rewatched it, and it is legit garbage.
I mean, I rewatched it before, I think, Infinity War, and I couldn't do it again for Endgame, even though I wanted to rewatch things. I have never attempted to rewatch Hulk because, like,
because it's bad.
It's so bad. But, like, they've learned, and even...
Sorry, I had to do slaps.
And, like, it's not... I'm not expecting DC to be perfect and thoughtful. I don't think that that's what they're going for. But I feel like the movie industry should know by now that, like, having at least, like, a coherent plot sells tickets, and having like...
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you're right, the series, Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they do the series that tie in really well. And here's the thing about DC, though. DC does know how to do it.
I know.
It's just not for the movies, because I watch all the DC shows, and I love them. I even love the HBO DC shows, like Titans. I thought Titans was fantastic.
Are you kidding me? Like, the concept that they put out on CW? Like...
The CW thing? Oh, my God.
Like, how can they be putting out, like...
Legends of Tomorrow nonsense. That is so fun.
Well, even, like, you get, like, The Flash, you get Supergirl. Like, all of these things, like, they're putting out, not necessarily... Like, they have deep moments.
And they have a crossover every season.
And
they have a crossover event every
season. The movies are only about one-off moneymakers, and I agree with that. It's just, like...
But they're trying to tie them back together, like with Marvel, and they're just not working.
Right, and, like, why haven't they grown past that? Because they, like, I know, like, this is going back to the long game thing, but, like, honestly, you make more money by tying things in and having everything be good. You get loyalty.
It's just a real bummer because, again, I think, you know, and we'll start to tie stuff up because our hour's almost over, so we'll do, like, last points. But, A, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the first episode of Let's Talk Pop.
And thank you for bearing with our tech issues at the start.
We are learning how to use Twitch. It will take us a moment. But I think a huge thing for Wonder Woman, again, is that I went in with a lot of positive feelings. The Marvel Spider-Man movies are actually joyful, and I love them so. I love Tom Holland. I love every Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. I used to be Superman all the way, but then I was like, oh, Superman's kind of boring. But Spider-Man is the shit. He's just like a fucking nerd, which same. Who, like, anyway, they do a really good job making them enjoyable. I think Tom Holland is an amazing Spider-Man and an amazing Peter Parker. I thought Andrew Garfield was a great amazing Spider-Man, and I thought Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker.
Right.
But not the other way around. And, like, I've seen every Spider-Man movie, like, multiple times. I thought the most recent, Far From Home, was phenomenal.
I really liked Far From Home. That's the thing. Like,
Jake Gyllenhaal, I want him to be in every movie.
Even the Marvel movie, the more recent, I can't say this for everything, but the more recent Marvel movies, everything after, I would say, everything post Ultron has had something about it that made it worth seeing. And I'm happy that Doctor Strange is hopefully never getting another solo movie. Like, I don't need him anymore. But
he's just not that interesting of a character. He's just
and also like some weird Orientalist shit, and I don't want to.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Like, Tilda Swinton is a queen, and, like, I want Tilda Swinton in everything except for that role. Maybe we don't need Tilda Swinton playing that part. Like, what a weird choice. And she's amazing. I think Wonder Woman came in with a lot of good feelings for me because I really did enjoy the first one. And it had issues, but it was overall very fun. It was nice to see a strong woman. That scene when, like, they're in that no man's land in World War I and all the men can't do it, and she comes in and they play the Wonder Woman thing. They're like, ah, and she's like, blah, 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 and he's, like, helping her. Like, he's in the background.
Right.
So she's doing all the fight things, and he's, like, assisting her. Like, that scene, like, I still think about that scene, and I have, like, fees.
Yeah.
And then, like, this movie came out, and I was, like, ready to be like, yes, I want more of that. And they gave him, like, again, gave him, like, a cool clothes montage. And the Lyndon Carter cameo, and then they were like, oh, women power? Fuck that.
Well,
she needs a man to teach her how to do everything.
And that's the thing, like, all I'm looking for is a light, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have plenty of things for me to criticize, but just give me, like, a lighthearted action movie that has
That's all I want.
80s music and bright colors.
That's what I want. I want, like, Guardians of the Galaxy did a great job of that. Thor Ragnarok, which is like the number one, like, fun. Like, I have watched Thor Ragnarok a zillion times, will continue to. Everyone is hot in that movie. Tessa Thompson is, like, a goddamn queen in that movie.
Oh my god.
Like, Chris Hemsworth getting to be funny Thor. Thank you.
Can we, like, when this eventually happens, can we talk about the Jane Foster Thor with that's going to be happening? Because
I think you should be on, because that's got to, I mean, if it's based on the comics at all, which I assume it will be, if there's a whole cancer storyline.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be doing it or not, but, like, I mean, like, the whole,
it would
like,
be a bummer if they don't.
I mean, that whole thing is, like, God, Jane Foster has breast cancer. She has breast cancer, and every time she transforms into Thor, her treatment gets set back because her powers, like, fight off, undo the chemo, basically.
It's such a really fascinating and well done comic book, and I think
Tessa Thompson.
I think that there's this thing for me that, like, it wasn't the action the action was trash too, which I agree, like, was about, like, there wasn't even action until, like, an hour and a half in. Like, the action was stupid. It didn't make sense to the storyline. And, like, I don't know, like, I love comic books, and comic books are usually so thoughtful and ahead of their time and willing to take risks. I mean, there's all this stuff about politics and, like, good politics. Like, comic books have tons of trans characters and queer characters, and I mean, even the DCU, like, the shows, they're able to play with those things. There's tons of, like, body transitioning characters. There's, like, a lot of gayness in the comic, like, even the shows. Like, they talk about modern science. They talk about all these really important things, which is, again, why, like, I think comic books are so special. And, like, I had a boss once who used to talk shit and be like, oh, they're infantile, and everyone who likes that shit is, I'm like, you're dumb. But, like,
no, that means you don't know what, like, anybody who says that doesn't understand the genre. Like, comics have consistently been a place that have given artists more freedom of expression than other mainstream forms of media.
Ooh. And so it's, like, a super big bummer when you start watching these DCU films that are way more complicated and dealing with money. And, like, I think that there is a huge bummer moment when you start thinking about the fact that they've just worked so much about money and, like, stopped thinking about, like, trying to break the mold a little. Because I think the first one, that was the thing that was exciting. They broke the mold. They tried something new. It went really well. And then they just, like, again, took a pooper. And, like, they took a big old pooper. They took a big stinking pooper.
Hi, Bolshi. Welcome to chat. We're talking about poop.
We're talking about poopers, and that Wonder Woman 1984 lost all of the excitement that I had from the first one, like, to the point where I might not even be able to enjoy the first Wonder Woman movie again, which I will, because, like, I do like having a woman lead. I think it's important. I think we need more of that. I'm looking forward to the Black Widow movie.
I mean,
even
so
though they did her a bit dirty.
I think, like, that's the thing. Like, there are things about the Black Widow movie trailer that make me uneasy. I don't like, weird fat jokes, weird, like, Soviet whatever humor. Like, I'm not super confident that it's going to be amazing, but I do have some level of trust in Marvel Studios that it will have redeeming qualities, because, like,
I will never say that Marvel does a good job all the way, because, like, Marvel really fucked up the whole Fat Thor thing too in the, like, and like, they did and they didn't, right? Like, I like the fact that they had Fat Thor and they kept him fat even after he, like, decided to be
right, but, like, they made it a joke.
They made fun of him so much, and it's like, no, you were doing so good,
and, like,
and he was hot as fuck. He was very hot fat. They could just leave him like that, and I would be about it.
It also just, like, whatever. That is a separate thing, and maybe we can.
Sorry, we're gonna keep ranting about comic books.
I mean,
that's what we do.
I mean, we still have all 11 of our viewers.
Hey, you know what? This is our first real thing. 11 viewers is a very exciting moment.
I know. Like, thank you everyone for being here, and we're gonna continue.
Seriously. And being in the chat.
Just, like, as a fair warning, like the two of us could probably keep talking about this forever.
Yeah, so this is actually how this guest and this topic came up, is that we were hanging out. We were helping a friend move, and we started bitching about this, and I went, wow, this is the first episode of our show. And you're right, Thrasher, they did Fat Thor so wrong, because he was hot, and they made fun of him, and that's bullshit. I just hate, like, and like, again, Marvel does a pretty good job, and so when they do it bad, and they do something incorrect like that, it's double jarring.
Yeah.
Like, wait, you get this right.
But I think what the thing about it is, and we talked about parts of Doctor Strange, and like all these things that they have done wrong, I'm still like, I'm going to go see this next movie. I'm going to go see it probably the night it comes out. Like, I'm going to go.
Probably. That is what I do.
Right. And with DC, I'm like, I don't even want to watch all of these movies when they hit HBO. Like,
except for Wonder Woman.
No, the only thing I'm going to be excited for now is the next thing that they put Margot Robbie in.
Yeah, because Birds of Prey really was phenomenal. I would say that Birds of Prey had some of the best fight scenes of any comic book movie. I'm going to say a big statement. Any comic book thing I have ever seen, including Marvel.
It was stylized.
The Funhouse fight sequence.
The roller skating.
Is one of the best. Oh yeah, we talk a lot about both. You missed a good amount of our conversation about the uncomfortable Middle Eastern conversation, especially as like anti-Israel Jewish person. What's up? We're really making big conversations. But Birds of Prey has the best fight scene of any fight movie. I think maybe of any fight scene I've ever seen on.
God, it's so good.
It's so well done. It feels like a comic book. You can tell how fucking strong these people are. Like, Margot Robbie obviously did a lot of her own shit. Like, they all did. And even the stunt people were phenomenal. Like, the choreography of the fight scenes were so good. You could see what was happening, which is a big issue with fight scenes in movies where it's so dark you can't really see what's happening. But because it was so stylized and, like, cartoony, it felt like I was watching a cartoon in real life. And it was the most fun I've ever had watching, like, a fight sequence. And, like, again, that movie, and also Ewan McGregor being a ham and chewing up the scenery is, like, the hottest, best thing I've ever seen.
I mean, Birds of Prey might be the last movie I've ever gotten to see at a theater. So.
Same. I'm not mad that that's the last movie I saw in theaters.
I'm not mad that that's the last movie I saw. I'm a little sad at the idea that I don't know when I'm ever going to see a movie at a theater again.
Because I feel like Amelie and how much I love going to movies to watch other people's faces at movies. And since I'm not really seeing a whole lot of people in person, that whole, like, watching someone watching something I love thing is, like, my favorite. Like, introducing a friend to a TV show I love and then watching their face is, like, my previous favorite.
You mean like how I got to introduce you to Schitt's Creek? Or no, that wasn't, yeah.
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you, it was Fry.
You didn't introduce me to Schitt's Creek.
That we got Fry to do it, yeah. Okay.
Like, that feeling of, like, watch something that you love is such a powerful, lovely feeling. And, like, I do, like, sure, there's a lot of, like, legitimate sad things with the pandemic, with, like, people passing away and friends and family getting sick, which I've dealt with. But, like, one of the harder things for me to adjust to is not going to movie theaters. I used to go by myself all the time.
Yeah.
I think that is the social thing I miss the most.
God, the movie pass days were good days.
Ugh. Or, like, the Alamo Draft House and then getting a drink of House at Wax after and, like, talking about the movie. I mean, one of my favorite memories growing up, and the reason I'm a pop culture obsessive is because of my dad. Hi, Papa Hemingway, who's in the chat. And, like, after Hebrew school, we would go see a movie. And, like, we didn't just watch movies. We watched movies, and then we talked about the movies. And, like, that is part of how I, like, learned how to be discerning and make my own opinions and judgments. Yeah. And I don't know, like, it's very special. So this is our version of that now. And we're definitely over time, but we're having fun. So we were just kind of going. But, I was like, I'll just keep talking about this. It's so fun. But thank you for joining the Pop Culture Co-op.
Yeah.
Staci, aka Coffee. Thank you for being the first ever guest on Let's Talk Pop. This is a weekly show. Most of our shows are bi-weekly. This one will be weekly just to, sometimes it'll just be me bitching about shit for an hour. Sometimes it'll be me having guests on, like this week. Hopefully I'll figure out how to use Twitch by next week so that Staci doesn't have to quickly jump in and try to figure out how to get us live because I panic. Technology is fun, everyone. And we really appreciate you coming. I think most of you who are in the chat are actually part of the co-op, so thank you for supporting. And we can't wait to support your shows and see everything go live. So, hell yeah. Any last words, Staci?
I don't know. I think that I'm just excited to see where this goes from here. I have not set a final time for my show because I actually wanted to talk to you about that anyway because I have thoughts. But I'm going to be talking about The Bachelor and my experiences as like a queer leftist who likes this dumbass show way too much.
I'm
but
so excited.
and it starts. The new season starts tomorrow night. So I wanted to.
So we'll be able to do some good Bachelor recaps.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I'm going to do too much recapping because there's a good number of people who do that. But like, this is a big deal that the first black male lead on The Bachelor starting tomorrow night, but he's also very much fitting in with all the other things that they like about their leads. It's a whole thing. But it being The Bachelor means that while you have a male lead, you have so many more new women who've entered the franchise and like cool people. So it's more fun to talk about the contestants. So anyway.
That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to watch your show. So keep your eyes peeled for when we hear when those are going to go up, and keep watching this channel because we have a lot of really cool programming coming soon. And I'll actually see you on Friday with my first episode with a actor who's in the chat on Big Time, where we're going to talk about fatness and pop culture, which I think we've already even kind of talked about today a little. And my cat is hungry, so I should probably go feed her.
Okay. So
thanks, everybody.
And if you haven't yet,